Today we're going to talk about the building blocks of contact centers and how you really take these pieces, the cloud solutions, the digital solutions, and you kind of put them all together. A lot of the stuff is maybe things you already know, some of it's maybe things that you don't know, but the point is that it's a very complex environment that you're going to be embarking upon, if not already, and how do you kind of tease it apart? I had a mentor, Ronald Rhodes, that worked for Amex when I was in my early 30s, and he said, Valur, contact center is just like a bowl of spaghetti. You just take out one string at a time and put it on the table and figure it out until you get it all sorted. But the real reason that we're here actually is behind the why. We're not here necessarily to look at transformation technology. Yes, we are. We're not necessarily here to talk about cloud, but yes, we are. We're not necessarily here to talk about some new things regarding new widgets. Yes, we are. But at the end of the day, when you buy those things and you implement those things, you're trying to increase your customer lifetime value. You're trying to be your cog in the wheel that actually grows the business. So this is a really critical KPI that I turn a little bit into a Baptist minister on, because it takes all the other KPIs and mashes them together and really tells you if you're kind of doing the right things in a fashion that's balanced and for the business. Basically, it's the customer revenue minus your support costs times the length of the relationship, the most critical part, loyalty bit that we talked about earlier, the acquisition costs, getting new customers and retaining the customers that have left and getting them back. And then finally, you've got your customer lifetime value. That's the calculation. What's the value of that customer, a typical customer, that we predict over the period of time that once we get them, they'll stay with us for 3.5 years, they'll spend 70 pounds a month, and we've got to get them to 4 years and have them spend 100 pounds a month. And how will they do that? One, by staying with you, and two, by the fact that you're offering services and things that they're going to want to buy on a monthly basis, or with their big purchase renew down the line. So obviously there are things in that, the top line growth, contact center efficiency, certain SLAs that support that. And then the key thing here is what we've been talking about quite a bit, is the seamless, easy, adaptable, low effort, low friction, and how digital and how the transformation and the enablement of digital can help with this. And then, of course, the acquisition costs, which are just like the support costs. So it's an actual calculation that you can just put in a spreadsheet and figure out. And of course, we can help you with that if anybody's interested in how to do that with your actual data, because it can easily be done. So this is where digital comes in. Let's think about it, a digital contact being optimized. So there's really only 4 things that you need to think about. And that's the KPIs that you want to measure. And that's basically the lowest cost per contact. And I'll be talking about cost per contact as a critical measure. Highest propensity for revenue generation, the best expressed customer experience, and then of course, the best expressed agent experience. Let's dispel a myth. How many people think that high quality has high cost? Yeah, anybody? So some of these investments that you might be making, you're thinking like, we can't afford it. No, it's gonna cost too much. We're never gonna get approval for this. But you gotta flip it on the end to say, okay, well, what's the opportunity cost that's being lost here or missed here because I'm not doing something, because I have to replace something or redo something over and over again with antiquated or systems that are in the traditional contact center market. So if you think about a contact center, and if you're just trying to break it down to its bare components, it's basically the process. And the definition of the process is, in the process you have to add value at some point, or it's just a waste. So when you're looking at your processes, the ones that are 30 years old and 10 years old and 5 years old and the ones you just came up with, is that process adding value? In the simplest terms. And I'm sure some of you guys have been through some quality training or Six Sigma or whatever might be out there, but that is in its bare essence. Now let's take that to that crazy complicated puzzle I showed you earlier of all the crazy things that are going on, and how do you overlay all of these things that are going to try to make your contact center more efficient and more effective and add more business value and make the customers want to stay with you longer in this process. So obviously there's continuous process improvement involved, and you should have a team working on that. Like you said, you have a dedicated team, and the agents tend to actually provide the best insight on what needs to be improved. Then you have voice coming in. You have web, social, self-service, apps, and all these things right here where you're trying to capture the customer before they get into your door, before they come a knocking. Please, you can handle that outside before you come in, Mr. Customer. We've got this really cool app that we put out there. And if you think about the cost per contact, once they get into the contact center, you're talking about anywhere between £2.50 to £4.50 on average in the UK per contact, whereas the average cost per contact for one of these is in the pence like 0.01 pence for a web touch, and maybe in the IVR or in an app, it might be just a few more pence based on the amount of technology and the number of contacts that touch that. Now, once the customer has gotten past all this, it's usually something very emotive, something very complicated, something that looks like a bowl of spaghetti to them. And they need the agent to sit there and help them tease it apart and address the issue. Now, obviously, their emotive intelligence needs to be high from all those traditional tools. You can't smoke a cigarette next to them and tape them and tell them to do better anymore. But you've got all these cool things here that can help them. Speech analytics, web social analytics, robotic process automation, and agent assist, which actually empower the agent knowing what they're doing wrong or what they're doing right, or how they can actually do things better and focus more on the call because they've got a robot running around picking things out based on what's happening in the call, based on what's being said in the call, based on where they are on the screens. Things are being reduced. And then finally, once they kind of get spit out the other side of the sausage machine, how was that experience? CSAT, ESAT, how was the employee's experience? So now we're going to start talking about, okay, well, what is our goal? What are we trying to do with all this stuff that we're buying and all these process improvements and be nice to the agents programs that we're trying to do? Well, in the simplest terms, and again, we could probably go through all kinds of debate on how to figure this out, but in the simplest terms, how many contacts do you have, regardless of the channel? How much are you spending to support that? Divide that out, and you get your cost per contact. It's extremely simple, just boom, boom, boom. Now, the key is to not, yes, the industry average, yes. But the key is to not get all hung up on this. Well, that should be 2 pounds, and we forgot about the facilities, and what about the new swimming pool we're putting in next year? But who cares? The point is, this is where you put the flag on the ground, and then you say, going forward, is this going up, or is it going down? Are we getting more costly, or are we getting more efficient? And in conjunction with that, is quality going up or going down? Remember that first chart that I put out there that said world-class is lower cost per contact and a higher quality. And then, guys, I promise you, board, we will deliver to you profit growth or an efficiency of 8.6%. You can take that efficiency and dump it over into the profit line. And that's what I did to help you, Mr. MD, Mr. President, to help the business grow. And we feel that that's going to kick into play in about 8 months. It's about 27 FTEs worth of capacity release, and that should be about £1 million worth of benefit each year that I, Mr. Contact Center Director, is going to deliver to you, boss. But the reality is how do you do it? And why? How can you do it? And why do you do it? In the sense that, where do you start? Well, the first thing, and we'll talk about this later, Hillary's is going to talk about how they started with this process, is, okay, using this process, first you want to do a technology inventory. And all those widgets and things and robots and contact analytics and ACDs and WFMs and call monitoring, are you doing it or are you not doing it? And how does it affect the input? How do these tools affect your ability to process something with more value? And then finally, are you able to measure it? Where do you stand? How do these things contribute? Once you get that, you talk to some experts, you look at your experience, and you say, the business outcome from these different tools that I'm thinking about putting into play, they're going to either reduce contact duration, they're going to do contact deflection, they're going to actually keep the contact from coming in the first place because of the process improvement, and I feel that the impact to the business is going to be X%, or a number, like for example, 30 seconds or 60 seconds, and of course, your cost per contact can get down to a cost per minute, which gets down to a cost per second. Then you start to extrapolate that data using, for example, a waterfall diagram to say if we put agent assist in, we think we can get about 3% operational savings because of the reduction in talk time. Reduction in handle time, but not the reduction in talk time. Analytics, we feel about 2.5%. ID&V, 0.5%. Call queuing, chatbots, RPA, 2%. And we think overall, Mr. Boss, I can deliver to you about a 10% return on all these things that I'm asking for. And I'm not asking for them all right now. I want to buy these maybe over the next 3 years. And it's like more of a roadmap type situation. So, in summary, you got charting the journey, applying the best practices, understanding what needs to be done and when and where and how, and then of course aligning the business strategy with the strategy of the contact center.